Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Cassette, for a very warm welcome and introduction. Thank you, Dr. Wheeler, for inviting me as a keynote speaker for tonight's induction. Thank you to Texas Christian University Beta Alpha Chapter of Sigma Nursing for inviting me for tonight. It is truly an honor to be here. To our inductees tonight, I was in your seats about 6 years ago when I was inducted into this very chapter as a TNP student. When I got the call a few months ago to be a keynote speaker, I said yes without hesitation. Even though I'm still battling with the jet lag from my trip from Europe yesterday, I couldn't be more excited to be here. My journey into nursing wasn't easy. It is riddled with challenges, lots of tears, sweat, and sacrifices. I grew up in the Philippines, in an impoverished family, studying nursing by candlelight and staying in the library until it closes, or in the 24-hour McDonald's just to finish my lessons some 20 years ago. It was challenging, but I promised myself that one day I would build a life where I wouldn't have to use candlelight to study anymore. And I'd lift my family, especially my mother, out of poverty. Fast forward to today, and I'm proud to say I fulfilled that dream. After graduating from TCU in 2022, I've become a full-time urgent care nurse practitioner in Houston, Texas. And I'm actively involved in volunteer work and leadership roles in national organizations like Sigma, American Academy of Nurse Practitioners, American Nurses Association, Texas Nurse Practitioners, and the Society of Internationally Educated Nurses in North America. I also train and coach nurses, internationally educated nurses, or NCLEX through my company Aspire RN. I'm active in social media, using my voice to influence nursing and healthcare in my own little way. Sigma has always been one of the organizations I aspire to join. It is the largest international honor society for nurses, something I only once read about in books when I was in my BSN about 23 years ago in the Philippines. You see, back then we didn't have a Sigma chapter in the Philippines, so one can only dream. So 6 years ago, I was inducted. It was the happiest day of my life. I flew in from Edinburgh, Texas, which is about 800 miles away from here, 15 miles from the Mexican border, just to do the induction and fly back last night to Edinburgh. I was just that happy to spend that money to come over here and get a photo, basically. Since joining, I've worked on several projects with Sigma. I contributed to the creation of a next generation NCLEX toolkit back in 2023. A resource designed to help nurses worldwide to prepare for NCLEX. I served as a guest speaker in a podcast called the Nurse First Podcast, Season 2, Episode 2 called Open Doors. I encourage you guys to listen, where I shared my vulnerability for the first time growing up in a traumatic childhood and how it shaped my nursing journey. I've collaborated with Sigma through my organization, Sienna, the Society of Internationally Educated Nurses in North America, to offer free continuing education courses to nurses around the world via the Nursing Learning Exchange. As a global online community moderator for Sigma, I help facilitate discussions and mentorship around the world. I also completed the Global Advocacy Scholar Academy, where I learned about the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations and have published my work about nursing migration. And in January 2026, I'll be speaking in a Sigma virtual webinar on human trafficking of nurse migrants, one of my key advocacy areas. And it's truly a platform for growth and leadership. So congratulations to all the inductees tonight. Give yourself a round of applause. Now, without further ado, I want to go to what I'm here to talk about. What does representation mean to all of you? So I want to talk about my experience. Now that you are being inducted in Sigma Theta Tau International Honor Society of Nursing, what are you representing? I want you guys to think about that. I've been a nurse for 18 years. I've been an ED nurse, a nurse educator, a nurse practitioner, an entrepreneur, and now president of the organization Sienna, a nonprofit organization representing IDNs. I have performed so many roles that sometimes I question which path to take next. And that's what I love about nursing, because we always have a lot of opportunities to lead and to grow. However, as I went further into my career, and when I moved here into the US some 8 or 9 years ago, with my immigrant experience and seeing it among the nurses that I mentor, my followers and nurses in social media forums that I meet, I've seen the abuse of nurses, of immigrant nurses who are being trafficked, given unfair contracts, subjected to unsafe work environments, being bullied, being harassed, and being exploited financially. I was so bothered by the fact that not only are our nurses being abused and exploited, it is that no one is doing anything about it. Now let me tell you this, for someone to pack their bags and uproot their whole lives, to start all over again in another country with another culture, trust me, I've been there, and it's not easy. Top it off with the stress of our jobs as nurses. It can have catastrophic effects for nurses. I've personally encountered nurses of whom these factors took a toll on their mental health. It became clear to me that this is the path that was laid out for me. I needed to step up and use my experiences, my journey, my voice to amplify these issues that are affecting the global nursing mobility. I needed to represent these nurses who are unable to represent themselves. This is what representation is for me. I brought my own seat to tables where I wasn't offered one. And when I could not bring myself to the table, I created a table for me and for those who I represent. So think about this again. It does not matter if you're an undergraduate nurse, a new RN, a graduate student, a seasoned nurse. Just ask yourself, what do you represent and why? One of my mentors growing up told me, and it stuck with me until today, that when you are doing something, be intentional. Being intentional means you do things on purpose, not just out of habit or obligation. It's asking yourself, why am I doing this? Who does this serve? Does this align with my purpose? The problem with many nurses is what I call the bedside mentality. By that, I mean we often think that all we do as nurses is bedside care, charting, medicating patients, checking their vitals, going through orders. Now, there's nothing wrong with bedside care. I love bedside, just to be clear. I'm still a full-time urgent care nurse practitioner, and because I love interacting with patients and seeing them better. But is that all we do as nurses? I remember Dr. Lorenz, one of my professors here at TCU DNB, said on our first day in class back in 2018, if you are not at the table, you're on the menu. Have you guys heard about that? Yes? What does that mean to you? At that time, I was so confused what it meant. You know, like I had to search it in Google. I was reading the guidance. Does it mean, am I on the menu? Or what does that mean? Well, it became apparent to me after so many years that it means that if we are not part of the decision-making process, then decisions will be made about us and not with us. In healthcare, that could mean policies or processes and systems that may be designed without our input, affecting how we practice and how our patients receive care. If we are letting people without nursing background dictate what we do, how we do things, or why we do things, then we lose that power to improve care, to provide high quality and effective nursing care. We lose that power to advocate for our patients and for our peers. Do you know how many nurses there are globally? Anyone? 29 million nurses around the world. In the United States alone, we have 5 million something nurses, 5.4 million based on the latest data. We are the largest group of healthcare scientists, experts, and leaders. We have the power to create massive change and reform to the healthcare landscape globally. This is why nurses, we need to embrace the role as leaders in healthcare. When you advocate for your patients or your peers, when you speak up when you see something that is not right, when you fight for your patients' rights, or provide pain management for patients' comfort, or choose the best medicine, or choose the safest procedure for a patient, or speak up for a patient in the interdisciplinary team, when you involve yourself in matters concerning more than you, your individual journey, such as policies affecting healthcare, equitability, inclusivity of care regardless of race, color, ethnicity, gender, or even accent, when you advocate for accessibility of care, providing care to minorities, underserved patients, and underrepresented patients here or anywhere in the world, when you use your nursing expertise on a local and global scale, and nowadays in social media, that is representation. That is advocacy. That is being inclusive. That is what nursing excellence is all about. And that is what it means to be a Sigma nurse. And do you think I learned these things earlier on in my career? It took me 18 years to finally talk about my advocacy, my niche, and my representation. If you are a new nurse, do not worry. Your first 5 years are all about learning your role and mastering them. But as you go further into the profession, you will learn the intricacies and complexities of healthcare. You will eventually find your niche and what you want to represent. And to my seasoned colleagues, my challenge to you is ask yourself, what else could you do to improve healthcare in your specialty? Because I can guarantee to you there is always something. Use your experience to identify causes or communities to represent. The Sigma website has plenty of resources for all of you to help you build on your advocacy and leadership in local, national, and global arena. Now here are the 3 things that I want to leave to you today. I don't want to prolong this. I want you guys to be inducted as fast as we can. Great? Be intentional. That's the first one, and know your purpose. Second is get out of the bedside mentality. And finally, be the change that you want to see. Thank you, everyone.